2016. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Casaban? Here. Mr. Lauren? Here. Mr. Richardson? Mr. Richard? Here. Mr. Willie? Here. Mr. Davis? Here. Mr. Fitzmaurice? Mr. Doherty? Here. Mr. Drum? Mr. Randolph? Here. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This time we respectfully ask that you silence all phones and electronic devices. If you wish to appeal any recommendation of this commission, the appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of the commission, we ask that you fill out a speaker's card for our records. Each side will be provided 10 minutes to present with 5 minutes for rebuttal. And lastly, if you wish to discuss the case after it is ended, we would ask that you exit the building, as if you go back into the lobby, it does echo into the chamber. This time we would ask you to stand with an invocation by Commissioner Randolph, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Commissioner Richard.
Gracious Father, once again we come to you as humble as we know how, with praise and thanksgiving in our hearts for all the blessings you bestowed in our lives. Lord, we thank you for our families. We thank you for this parish. We thank you for the government that we serve and that represents us. And Heavenly Father, we thank you for this commission. Help us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all and all those that's in the audience. And all these blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you. In the Commission's packets are the minutes from the May 3rd, 2016 meeting. I would ask you to review, and I will entertain any motions or amendments. Commissioner Davis.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, a second by Commissioner Dougherty. Any further comment? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries. Staff, do you have any cases you wish postponed?
No, Mr. Chairman, no request.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. The public is encouraged to speak on behalf of or in opposition of any cases heard by this commission. Zoning change request cases. Applications for proposed change of zoning district or amendments to the land use ordinance requiring review and recommendation of approval by the Zoning Commission before action by the Parish Council are as follows. We do believe that given the number of people here this evening and the number of speakers cards we have, that agenda item 11, case 2016-262-ZZ, we are going to move that to the first case heard this evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to move that item up.
Second. So moved by Commissioner Dougherty, second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further comments to the commission? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries. So again, we're going to hear this case first. Case number 2016-262-ZC, existing zoning, A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning, ED1 Primary Education District. The parcel, 1.596 acres. The petitioner, Patricia Lacoste, Richard Zimmer, Diane Zimmer, Herb Davis. The owner, Patricia Lacoste, Richard Zimmer, Diane Zimmer, and Herb Davis. The parcel is located on the west side of Magnolia Street, north of Sassafras Street, being 252 and 256 Magnolia Street, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 4. Staff?
There's an existing private elementary school on lot located at 252 Magnolia Street, and on the other side, they is developed with a single-family residence. The objective of this request is to bring the existing use in compliance with the appropriate zoning district and to allow for expansion of the school on the adjacent lot.
Staff doesn't have any objection to the request to bring the existing use in compliance with the appropriate zoning. However, there's no compelling reason to recommend approval of the expansion of the on the adjacent lot. So at this time, staff would like to recommend approval of the ED1 primary educational zoning district on the existing site where the school is located. However, would like to recommend denial of the requested zoning change for the adjacent parcel.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? I am. If you'd please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record and your request.
My name is Bree Stahlberg, and I'm representing Kinderhouse Montessori, 252 Magnolia Street in Mandeville, Louisiana, 70448.
And for the commission, would you state your reasoning for requesting the zoning change?
Absolutely. We are going to withdraw our request to rezone 256 Magnolia. We are no longer looking to expand. We do, however, want to proceed with our request to rezone 252 Magnolia Street. That is where we are currently operating as a school, and we have for 20 years. This will in no way change our current operations.
So at this time, you're recommending an amendment to your request to only include 252?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So noted.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this amended request for rezoning of just parcel 252? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition of the rezoning? We do have some speaker cards, but if you would, please come to the podium. And if you would state your name and address, and you will be given a total time for all of you of 10 minutes.
My name is Nancy Picard, and my address is 324 Fountain Street, which is in Lewisburg. And I represent not only myself, but the Lewisburg Neighborhood Association. I had asked Ms. Lambert to include in your packets for this a petition that's been signed by 84 neighbors. I have the actual original petitions if you would like to have those as well. I also asked her to include in your packets a copy of a newspaper article, which I'll speak about in a minute. You know, it has been asked why the people in the neighborhood oppose the Kinderhouse Montessori. Well, I can say unequivocally that I certainly do not. My daughter went to a Montessori school. I've been a teacher. I support schools. But the school that she attended was on Highway 22, which is a commercial area, not an area that's zoned single-family residential. And we are just opposed to having a residential property rezoned as a commercial business in an area that's zoned single-family residential. For those of you who are not familiar with Lewisburg, haven't been there recently, the streets are very narrow, they're twisting. We're proud to have many old and stately live oak trees, but this means that roadways curve around those trees. The streets have no sidewalks, they're substandard by parish standards. The Lewisburg properties have their own sewage treatment plants, so it is unsuited for commercial enterprises. I'm not going to speak at length about the traffic concerns because I think others are going to, especially those who live directly on Elm Street, except to say that Lewisburg is kind of tucked away. It's to the west of Old Golden Shores, west of the Causeway, and the only means of entering and exiting are on Copel and Elm Streets. And it doesn't, there's no way to go through it to get to anywhere. So it's very lightly patrolled, very little patrolled, because it's not, you know, you have to go specifically there to get to it. And drivers drive routinely over the 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. The newspaper article that I asked Ms. Lambert to include in your packets goes back to 1996 to demonstrate that this was an issue when Kinderhouse first bought the property. This was a house in which a resident kept children babysitting and then expanded it and then moved out of the facility and basically kind of turned it into a school, which the neighborhood opposed. but it has now become a non-conforming use in that neighborhood. Now, you are the authorities on zoning, I certainly am not, but it's my understanding that it operates as a non-conforming use which is not permanent, and it can be lost by non-use. But a zoning change that's being requested now would be permanent. And so there's no reason for a permanent change. To do that would not be planning. The zoning plan for this area is single-family residential, and commercial is not allowed. So to allow it to now become permanently zoned that way would mean that it could stop operating for a period of time, and somebody could still buy it years down the road and turn it into a school, or possibly develop some other commercial property. It would increase the value of that property at the expense of the residential properties around it. So we urge you to vote against the zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
My name is Cindy Brantley. I live at 164 Elm Street, Mandeville. I am sort of directly affected with the daycare. Traffic is one of the major problems, and as Ms. Picard pointed out, the roads are just not equipped to handle it. There's no parking in the area. People have to park on the easements, and one of the issues with the current daycare, they have only 9 parking spaces on the property itself that is clearly marked and identified on the inside of the fence line. On the outside, using parish property, there may be 5 more spaces, and indicated on their application, they state they have 13 teachers. Well, that would equal 14 parking spaces and 13 teachers. Where are parents going to park? And when there is a function at the school, the parents park anywhere and everywhere. There is approximately 60-some-odd kids there right now, so when there's a function, they not only have mom and dad coming from work to see the children, grandma and grandpa comes. They park literally on both sides of the street. They have no regard for anyone else's property. If the daycare increases in size, you run into a problem, again, with sewerage. Most people back there, because the houses have been in existence forever, are on septic tanks. A lot of the sewage drains into open ditches. The daycare does not have open ditch draining. It drains back into a creek area. If they have an increase in children, they're going to have an increase in the sewerage. Our area is just not equipped to take on all of this added increase in the children in the school, plus the traffic and the parking. And I hope that everyone can sort of look at their own little neighborhood and say, do I want this in my area? We have put up with it for 20-some-odd years. And when the parish rezoned the entire area back in 2009, there was basically 3 properties that I know of in the Lewisburg area that was grandfathered in. One of the properties had chickens. They were allowed to keep the chickens and told, if you sell the property, the chickens go. Another property that was several acres had goats and peacocks. They were allowed to keep it. The daycare was grandfathered in because it was there. They were supposedly could not increase in size, and if they closed for a period of 6 months, they could not reopen. And now, years later, here they come and they want to increase in size, and the area is just not conducive for it. Thank you very much, and please consider our plea.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am. You have 2 minutes remaining.
My name is Sue Saucier, and I live on the corner of Elm and Fountain. I'm opposing this rezoning because of the traffic situation. I'm in my yard every morning watering plants or just doing something in the yard, and I can't tell you how many of these Montessori parents run the stop sign. I've seen it time after time. You don't believe me? Send a sheriff out there. I guarantee you can write at least 20 or 30 tickets every day. And I've almost gotten hit myself, even walking the dog, because of the traffic out there. So please consider our request to not grant this zoning increase. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'm Theodore Ralph. I'm the president of the Old Golden Shores Homeowners Association. As you have just heard, there's only one way in and one way out from Lewisburg. It's through us. We are extremely aware of the situation on Elm Street to the point that Councilman Lorino and I were there Friday looking at the deplorable situation with that intersection. He agreed to the point where for the last 2 days the parish has worked overtime, increasing visibility and doing some shoring work, and will be striping the road. I personally have been involved in 2 near misses in the past couple of months. These Elm Street and the streets in Old Golden Shores are 20 feet wide. There are no sidewalks. Elm Street is flanked by 2 very steep ditches. There is no place to bail out. You go off the side of the road, you're very subject to a serious accident. We have lots of people who walk the streets in Old Golden Shores for exercise and different recreation. We are not equipped to handle any more traffic than we've got. Quite frankly, if the Kinderhaus people want to expand, I support that. Please go somewhere where the appropriate zoning is, and good luck to them. We oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now offer 5 minutes of rebuttal.
I just want to reiterate that we are not looking to expand at this time. And speeding is a problem, but not just because of our parents, but that's a problem for the area. I know that personally, whenever I get my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter out of the car, half the time I see so many people flying down the road that I know we're not going 25 miles an hour and they live in the neighborhood. So that is a situation that we would be happy to speak with our neighbors about to try and rectify. We do provide our own sewage system. And the teachers, yes, we have 13 teachers on staff, but they all work different shifts. We have different time periods for different amounts of people. But at this time, we are not looking to expand. We are just looking to protect our current usage of the property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor during the rebuttal? If not, we'll close it and we'll allow the opposition to speak for another 5 minutes if anyone cares to rebut.
Good evening. My name's Chris Gallagher. I live at 265 Magnolia, which is catty corner to the school. So I'm directly affected by this. I will say the speeding is an issue, and I know that's not just our neighborhood, but we've got a 90-degree turn that's 2 houses down from the school, and they come blindly around that turn. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for any kids in the neighborhood. They have no regard for the homeowners in the neighborhood. I've pick up trash on a constant basis, cigarette butts, cups, cans. They've been a poor neighbor since I've owned my house. We had a dumpster that I had to stare at for 5 years until we finally were able to get that removed. So they haven't been a good neighbor, and they continue to I would say, and it may sound strong, in a duplicitous nature, when they hung these signs, they hung them so that no one could see them. And it was at the last hour that we got this group together to oppose it. I'm opposed to it in the way that it stands now. I'd rather see them move somewhere else. I think there's plenty of property that's more suited for what they need. Nobody likes the sound of children playing in the neighborhood more than I do, but 60 kids plus kids is screaming at one time in the middle of the day when you can hear them inside the house is too much. So again, I'm against it as it stands today, and am completely against any further expansion or any rezoning, and will continue to fight that as long as I have to. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
If in fact they're not interested in expanding, then the question is, why rezone? If they have their use, they're grandfathered in where they are, then there they are. But we don't, but if they decide to leave, we don't want it to be sold to someone else who's going to continue. We want it to go back to the way the entire area, which is established now as single-family residential. So there's just no reason, particularly if they're not going to expand, I just don't understand a reason why it would be rezoned in the middle of a single-family residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jeremy Otan, 62 Breton Way in Mandeville, 70471. I have a contract to purchase the piece of property at 255 Magnolia Street. It's directly across the street from this piece of property. Right now I live in the Woodstone subdivision, which is surrounded by Pontchartrain and Chafunct Elementary, which I don't have any opposition to those whatsoever. But the reason we're attracted to the Lewisburg neighborhood is large lots, very quiet neighborhood, historical district. And, you know, we just don't, I've seen in Woodstone, the houses that back up to Pontchartrain Elementary, they take longer to sell, the price per square foot is a lot less, and they just sit on the market a long time. And I just don't want that to happen to myself in Lewisburg, and to me, it affects the value of the property that I'm looking to purchase. So I'm opposed to this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, this time I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, I have some questions of staff. Is it still grandfathered in, the original lot?
Yes, currently it is grandfathered in.
Okay,
The use.
so this was brought before us because of wanting to do the second lot. Is that correct?
Well, for two reasons, it was, brought up to our attention, in the department. First, because they wanted to add on to the existing school, but also because they wanted to bring the existing use conform with the appropriate zoning as it's stated in the staff report.
So would they be allowed to continue as they are now?
They would.
Because they are grandfathered in?
That's correct. However, if you read to the grandfather clause, if the use stops for more than 6 months, it revokes back to the original zoning. Also, if the structure is destroyed by an act of God at more than 50%, they cannot rebuild. If legal counsel wants to,
Has it been closed?
No, it's never, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. I have some questions of the petitioner. Where did she go? There she is. Can I ask you some questions? It was stated that, how many kids are you licensed for?
We are licensed for 81 children. We are not at full capacity.
What is the size of the building?
I don't have the exact square footage in front of me.
Helen, does that comply with all of our parking and issues? I know that they have to follow state guidelines on some of this, but as far as the parking, are they meeting our requirements and so forth?
As of right now, I couldn't answer the question because I even researched our database as far as I could, and I couldn't find a conditional use permit or any type of permits that had ever been issued. So we've never reviewed any site plan. I'm sure it was done at some point, but our database does not go far enough for me to find the information.
It really concerns me. Thank you. I just wondered how many, kids the license I know you have to follow. This has come before us before where we've had a non-conforming use that they want to get into compliance. But I believe this is the first commercial venture that I've come across in my years on this, that it is in the middle of an old, established neighborhood. I've lived here all my life, and this was the two original Golden Shores and Lewisburg were the two original Mandeville subdivisions. I'm very aware of that road, the entrance. There is one entrance in, one entrance, I mean, and it's just not conducive to me to have, especially kids in a daycare there, because I'm the danger of emergency vehicles. That was the very first thing that I wrote down is emergency vehicles being able to get to this school if, there is an emergency and where it is. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but feel like this is a chance to be able, if she's withdrawing, that's what I need to ask. How do we proceed if this is, I just feel like this now is an inappropriate place. I know how it got there, but is it safe right now to have kids and this particular establishment in a subdivision? But if we are not looking at, and she has withdrawn her petition, how would we vote? What are we looking to do?
Commissioner Casabon, I'm going to defer to council
Okay.
to answer your question, but please, what she withdrew was 256
Correct.
out of the request. The request, as we are now addressing it, is to just rezone 252. But
Into
I think
that.
there are two questions. One is being, what happens in a non-conforming use?
Correct.
And secondly, what would happen, council, if, is the 6 months of non-operating, is that truly this?
That is correct, and it reverts back to its original zone.
But Helen said it was, that's what my question was, has it been in use? Is it still
Yes,
in use
it's-
and never been out of use?
That's correct, and that's why it maintains its non-conforming use. But once it stops operating and 6 months go by,
Correct.
more than 6 months, a day after the 6-month period, they can no longer operate a new business, a new school could not come at that location and operate.
So-
It reverts back to residential.
And so what we're looking at is they want to go ahead and make this an institutional, like you said, if they sell it under the institutional, then it stays a
Yes,
daycare.
that's correct.
And that's where I have a problem, that I would make a motion to deny.
We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to deny. We have a second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, Ms. Lacoste?
It's Mrs. Stahlberg.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
no
sorry.
problem.
I'm sorry. So you're withdrawing 256, so we're still back at 252. I don't quite understand why we've been trying to rezone this if you can still stay in operation.
The main reason we would like to rezone this in case, as Helen Lambert told me, if there was an act of God and more than 50% of our school was destroyed, we would still want to be able to operate. We are not looking to sell the facility. I mean, as far as I know, I don't think Ms. Pat will ever sell Kinder House. It's going to be passed on to her daughters. So we are just looking to protect our current usage in case of hurricanes, fire, things along those lines.
I just look at the feasibility and the chances of that happening, just out of, but, so I have to agree with Ms. Casabon on this. I just don't see a reason why to even rezone this.
It's really just to protect the current usage.
Commissioner Lauren.
Question for Helen. If you go back before comprehensive rezoning, before this was grandfathered in, if the day ever came where the school ceased to operate and it reverted back, the zoning classifications we had then are no longer on the books. So what would it revert back to?
It would revert back to A2 suburban. It is currently zone A2 suburban.
Okay, that's what it would be.
Yes.
Just for the record, that's what I was.
That's
wanted to make sure
correct.
Everybody understood. It would go back to A2 suburban?
It is still A2 suburban at this time, however, the use is grandfathered in.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's one other issue that besides trying to sell the property and/or an act of God, typically a lending institution is not going to lend you money on a piece of property that's incorrectly zoned. So if they wanted to borrow money to expand the facilities, et cetera, that may cause an issue too. I just want to point that out to everyone on this commission. It's not simply matters of act of God. That being said, I do support the motion to deny.
Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, we never want to take something out or take it away from somebody and close a business down. But that's why I wanted to make sure, as long as they are being able to operate and they have not closed down for 6 months, I feel like we're not hindering their business and they can continue at this point. But again, not to rezone it.
We currently have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to deny, second by Commissioner Willie. I'll remind the commission that a yes vote is a vote to deny. A yes vote would be a vote to deny. Please vote. The motion to deny does carry. We will proceed to the first case.
Dave, before these folks leave, you might want to remind them that this can be appealed to the council.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as Commissioner Dougherty did point out, that the petitioner does have the right to appeal our recommendation to the council.
We'll be back if she appeals.
Pardon me?
We'll be back if she appeals.
Which case is that? 257, okay. As we did in this case, we have several speakers' cards for agenda item number 7, which is case 257. Out of respect for all of those who wish to speak, we are going to move this up as well.
I would move up item 7, 2016-257 ZC.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Richard.
As the chair, you have every right to move items on the agenda without motion unless the commission objects. That's in our written rules.
Thank you, sir. So with that, unless we have an objection, then I will move it up. Case number 2016-257-ZC, existing zoning, A4A single-family residential district. Proposed zoning, A4A single-family residential district and planned unit development overlay. The parcel, 80.37 acres. The petitioner, Joshua Wayner. The owner, Watercross Development, LLC. The parcel is located north of West Shore Drive Extension and north of Pinnacle Parkway, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
The PUD is proposed to be developed as a single-family residential subdivision of a maximum of 143 lots. The size of the lot considerably varies throughout the development, mainly because of the presence of wetlands, the configuration of the site, and the fact that it's abutting the Tchefuncte River. Please note that the requested information that was listed in your original staff report has been submitted, and staff would like to recommend approval of the request with a note that a revised plan will have to be submitted before submission for preliminary subdivision approval.
Thank you. Mr. Moran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of Waycross Development and the Wayner family, who are the owners and developers of the property. This property consists of about 80 acres, and to orient you, it's located behind the Academy Sports off of I-12 and actually runs from that point to the east back and abuts a portion of the Tchefuncte River. The property was zoned A4A back in 2015, I believe, and it has received, the project has received both tentative and preliminary subdivision approval last year. So at this point, the plan that you see before you has been approved as far as the underlying zoning and all required planning approvals. And in fact, the development is under construction as we speak right now. The infrastructure is being put in place. We hope to be in a position to request final approval on the project from you in about the next 60 days, weather permitting. So the request before you tonight is for a PUD overlay. Although we are not changing the lot layout, we're not adding any lots, we're really not modifying the plan that's before you in a very meaningful way. But the purpose of the request is simply to provide some flexibility on the setbacks for the lots in the development. As I'm sure you're aware, A4A has very specific setbacks for the front, side, and rear of each lot. We would like to vary those and have some flexibility for some reasons that I'll discuss in a minute. In speaking with staff, there's really only two mechanisms in which to accomplish that. One is that for each lot that we wanted to vary it, we would have to apply to the Board of Zoning Adjustments for a variance. The other is to do a comprehensive request for a PUD overlay, which allows modification or flexibility with regards to setbacks. Since it didn't seem practical or reasonable to go in and have a request for a variance on each lot that needed some flexibility with the setbacks, we chose to pursue the PUD, which is what is before you tonight. As for those specific setbacks that we're asking to modify, the first is that on the 14 lots in the subdivision that either abut the Flowers Bayou cut-through or the Tchefuncte River, we are modifying the rear setback line so that it would allow for elevated walkways, small boat docks on the Flowers cut-through, and moderate boat docks and elevated walkways on the lots that front the Tchefuncte River. Absent the relaxation or flexibility on these guidelines, even though these lots back up to water, they really would have no ability to build these type of amenities that you would typically see on a waterfront property. In addition to those lots, we're also proposing to reduce the side setbacks on the smaller lots on the plan, the more garden home type lots, to go to a 5 foot on each side. The purpose of that is to be able to fit a larger home on those lots. Finally, we are proposing to reduce the front setback from 30 to 25 feet. So those changes on the setbacks are really the only approvals that are associated with this request this evening, because the lot layout stays the same, the number of, actually I think we're losing a lot or two, but the lot numbers stay the same. Everything in the plan that has already been approved generally stays the same, other than on the setback issues. Staff had some comments. As Ms. Lambert noted, we were able to provide the necessary data on the green space. Our green space is 33% or 26.18 acres, so we clearly exceed the 25% minimum that is required under the PUD ordinance. As for the amenities, we are proposing a 1 community boat launch. We've also got green space areas where there will be benches, landscaping, and those will be maintained as open spaces so that they can be used by the residents. There are a number of issues that have come up over the last several days. I know there will be Mr. Stakelum from Flowers Estates here, and we'll have some comments for you. But I'd like to at least address a few of these that I know are issues up front so that you are aware of our position on them. First, I know that there is some concern about the drainage on the site. As I said, the site is under construction presently, but I would respectfully submit to you that while we take the drainage on the site very seriously, That is not an issue for you sitting as the zoning commission, and it is not an issue that would be relevant to whether or not to grant a PUD overlay. But as I said, Mr. Wayner takes the drainage concern very seriously. In fact, he sent his engineers to the site today. We have a very detailed stormwater management plan. In fact, a plan that you approved through the preliminary approval you granted us last year that governs our drainage on the site and in fact focuses significantly on the water quality leaving our site. Our engineers inspected that system today. They will continue to monitor that system, and if there are issues that need to be addressed, we will address them. But again, the drainage on the site and the drainage plan that was approved is really not relevant for our inquiry tonight. The boat launch is the other issue. We understand that there is concern that we propose a boat launch on the Flowers Bayou cut-through. I would point out to you that we have identified the PUD, the boat launch on our PUD plan because we need to identify the amenities. If the PUD is not approved, it does not prohibit us from building the boat launch. The boat launch is an amenity that we could put in at any time under the A4A zoning. However, to be clear on what our amenities are, we're showing it, and it is our intent to build it. But to deny the PUD does not prevent the construction of the boat launch. I would also point out that the boat launch is on the inside, if you will, within the subdivision, behind a 100-foot buffer that was established by Mr. Wayner on this property some years ago. So there is over a 100-foot buffer between the boat launch, what is Flowers Bayou, and then you get to the residents in Flowers Estates. So we believe, Mr. Wayner believes, that having a boat launch, having one community boat launch is better than having each one of these lot owners that abut either the Flowers Bayou cut-through or the Tchefuncte River having their own. And that is the main focus in our desire to put it in. So to be clear, the proposed boat launch is not on Flowers Bayou. That there has been some confusion about that, and justifiably, because when we talk about Flowers Bayou, there is Flowers Bayou that runs along the Flowers Estates property line. Okay, there is what I'll refer to as the Flowers Bayou cut-through that leaves Flowers Bayou, runs diagonally in a southeasterly direction across my client's property, and connects to the Tchefuncte River. That cut-through is solely within my client's property. We're on the west side, we're on the east side. And it is on that body of water that we are proposing it. There is no way currently to come out of our proposed boat launch and get to Flowers Bayou next to the residents of Flowers Estates. That would be, right now, it is too shallow, and there is debris, and it would require desnagging. In addition, even though we are committed not to do anything from our boat launch back to Flowers Bayou, we couldn't do it if we wanted to. And this is an important point. Because to do that, we would have to penetrate the 100-foot buffer that I just talked to you about. So the concern that we are going to put this boat launch in, and this is somehow going to put traffic, boat traffic, along Flowers Bayou adjacent to Flowers Estates is not possible. It's not our intent, but it's not possible because of the reasons that I've just said. So I hope that that will allay any concerns that our friends in Flowers may have with regards to that. Again, in conclusion, this request is only about modifying the setbacks. That's what we're here about. We have to do that using the PUD overlay. We believe the plan submitted to you with the data that Ms. Lambert now has meets all of the requirements for your PUD ordinance. We believe that we have demonstrated what is necessary to gain your approval this evening. We would respectfully request your approval in accordance with your staff's recommendation. And again, I would reiterate that the drainage and the boat launch are not material to the inquiry this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Pardon me?
I'm against.
Not yet, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the zoning change? If not, anyone who wishes to speak in opposition, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is P.J. Staglem, and I'm representing the Flower State Civic Association.
Excuse me, and your address, sir?
50 Camellia, Covington, 70433.
Thank you.
We're passing out some drawings with some photographs because a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think it will give you a better understanding of what we're dealing with. We have the larger drawing, which is a blow-up of the smaller one. To orient yourself, the bottom of the page is where the Colonial Pinnacle Shopping Center is. The Academy is sort of off to the lower bottom left of the page. You can see where the Tchefuncte River curves in on the right side. The green line area that runs horizontally or diagonally across the page, that is the 100-foot no-cut buffer that was agreed to by Mr. Weiner as part of the settlement of the litigation that resulted from the Colonial Pinnacle rezoning. There's some brown areas on the left half of the page. Those are pre-development wetlands. Those areas prior to development would collect the water that accumulated on the site, and some of it might seep out into a ditch. And within that 100-foot buffer, the parish has a 25-foot drainage servitude along the northern edge of that buffer that was granted back in 1989. Now, we learned recently that Mr. Weiner granted the parish a 40-foot drainage servitude that overlaid the 25. However, the 40-foot servitude came into effect after the 100-foot no-cut buffer was put in. So the 40-foot drainage servitude really has no application at this point in time because it is primed by the 100-foot no-cut buffer. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with Flowers Bayou. It crosses Highway 22, right where the PJ's Coffee Shop is, and you have the development on the Pelican Landing Shopping Center development on the west side of 21, and then the PJ's on 21. And that little culvert and that area water, that is Flowers Bayou. Flowers Bayou is a natural bayou, and it tracks down to the corner of Mr. Biola's property, and then it tracks along this chart where we have here, where it says Little Bayou Cut Through. That's actually part of the original Flowers Bayou. But years ago, and we're talking back maybe in the 1960s, the developers back then cut a channel from the Tchefuncte River that basically comes in on a line that more or less matches that no-cut buffer line. And then it tied in with the natural part of Flowers Bayou. Now, we had a couple of problems in Flowers Bayou several years ago. When the developers were building what's now the PJ's Coffee Shop, that shopping center, they put a number of loads, plenty of fill in that site to raise it up. They didn't use any containment, and they lost several truckloads of fill into the bayou. In 2002, I was able to take a 22-foot bay boat under power almost to Highway 21. Today, when you get within several hundred yards of the highway, that water's a foot deep at most. That bayou used to be a minimum depth 5 to 6 feet. Today, it's about 3 to 4 feet max. In many places, it's 2 to 3 feet. We've got some residents who years ago had boat slips dug into their property where they could put a boat, launch, land it and exit. Those boat slips are dry land today, all because of siltation. Now, it wasn't all because of the loads that fell in off of where the PJ's Coffee is. Part of it relates to where the Bowers brothers developed Pelican Landing on the other side, and then just to the south of the Bowers brothers, there's the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center that was developed by Mr. Zappardo. I heard from one of the Bowers brothers years ago, they had not walked the land before they bought it. After they bought it, they found out it was too low. They added $450,000 worth of fill to the site. They didn't use any containment. Over the years, that fill washed into Flowers Bayou. Same thing with Mr. Zappardo. He added fill back there so he could build his Winn-Dixie. There was so much runoff from that site that the dirt washed out from under the concrete parking area that's to the back of the Winn-Dixie, and they had to shut that area down for several months while they dug it out, put more fill in, and then repaved it. But all of that fill that went into Flowers Bayou has eventually made its way downstream, and that's why Flowers Bayou alongside Flower Estates is much shallower than it used to be. Now, issues we have today, the outfall pipe. If you look on this drawing in front of you, you'll see a dotted red line around the middle of the page. Everything to the left of that dotted red line drains to the left because of the topography of the land. The stormwater management system that's in there is a gravity-based system. There's no pumps to move the water. That water flows to the left, it circles around, and that purplish line that runs on the south side of the no-cut buffer is where that water gathers and flows out. That is a 36-inch water drain right there, water line. If you look on lot 53, you'll see drainage outfall in pictures. That's where that 36-inch pipe empties. Because of the topography, the water flows straight across the 100-foot no-cut buffer onto Mr. Viola's property. His property has become a swamp as a result of this. If you look at the photographs, the photograph at the top, the drainage outfall, October 24th, that's what the road looked like after they cut it, and they put these granite boulders in there. Yet last night, the drainage outfall picture was taken, and you can see the boulders were used to prevent erosion around the 36-inch pipe, which is clearly depicted in the picture. The water that you see in that photograph came from last night's shower. It wasn't a heavy rainstorm. We were out on the site with Mr. Wayner at 5:30, and there was no standing water in that area. Yes, the soil was moist. We're not talking about dust. It was moist. But there was no visible standing water in that site. At 7:15, you can see the water, and it's shown in that picture in the upper right corner, and the one right below it, you can see where the water is actually overflowing the containment. And the siltation is escaping the device that's supposed to contain the silt. The lower pictures represent water flowing on Mr. Viola's property, and I'm going to let him describe that to you. But we have what you're being asked to do is approve a PUD development. And this is a PUD development that's got a 36-inch line that's pumping water onto the adjacent property. The second thing is the boat launch. Now, the boat launch is supposed to be situated in the area between lots 48 and 47. It's denoted as green space on here. But the actual drawing shows that almost that entire thing is paved as a roadway and for parking. The actual boat launch is in that little slanted area that runs right up to the edge of the water. But that area today had water that was almost knee-deep. You're being asked to approve a boat launch in an area where the standing water is almost knee-deep. And we're not talking about flood water. We're not talking about rainwater. This is the normal river height at this time of year. So that's what we're dealing with right here. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the footprint. You heard about the side setback changes, the front setback changes. All of that is so that they can build bigger houses. Well, the more houses you build, the bigger the footprints, and the bigger the footprints, the more runoff. And the more runoff, the more water winds up down in Mr. Viola's property. Now, I haven't spoken about the property, the drainage on the property to the right of that red dotted line. And that's because, for the most part, that's going to run through those purple lines and exit in the lower right-hand corner of the picture, which is not really a problem on our end. But we are concerned that more than half this property is now draining directly onto Mr. Viola's property. Water that used to accumulate on the site and gradually sink into the ground is now being gathered in storm drains. These low areas have been filled so that the lots can be developed. That's fine. But now we're getting all the water on our property, and that's not fine. I'm going to ask tonight that you all table this motion so that we can deal with it in further detail. Alternatively, I'm going to ask that you deny the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? If so, we can address one more.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dale Viola. I have 33 South Azalea in Flower Estates. We were in front of this commission 1 year ago, approximately at this time, discussing the closure of Azalea Street so that we could actually address some of the concerns that residents had about the cut-through, because there's an ordinance that allows, that blocks the connection with the Azaleas Flower Estates, but that could be overturned by a single vote. So that's what we were worried about. But what part of that came up when we started looking at the drainage is that no-cut zone is also topped by a levee. It's topped by a road. So there's no way for the water to get through it except for 3 small locations that come through it. Once they fill those lots, there's no way to do it. So now, when we brought up that we were given an underground drainage system and said everything is going to move to the Tchefuncte River. That is not the case. Yesterday, I reviewed these plans with Mr. Weiner and Mr. Stakelum. We went through them. Those drains all drain to that large 36-inch pipe, and that is coming right at me. My wife couldn't understand why we had the whole backyard was chocolate, and it had to do with I just thought it was, there's some silt, we can live with that, but not like it is now. I mean, if we have a real rain like we had, I didn't go back there because it was so deep. This morning, everything that you see in that hash mark that says wetlands, I kayaked up to that 5-foot line, that entire distance, all the way around from Flowers Bayou all the way to the Tchefuncte, starting at my property and going all the way across through the woods. You don't have to go anywhere. That's how deep that water is. So we'd like to ask that this be tabled so that we can get together with them, because they're building this infrastructure now. It's in the ground. That was what you see right there, they piled the dirt on top of a 36-inch pipe sitting on top of the ground because of the fact that we were concerned about the water, the ditch being there and not having an exit. So they fixed the problem. But we didn't closely examine it to see the engineering drawings because we weren't provided, and we were just given an overlay. And that overlay has not been totally forthcoming, and right now I have I'm losing the use of my property based on this development. And if you lock it in a PUD, you're approving it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This time I'm going to go to a 5-minute rebuttal. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The PUD has absolutely nothing to do with 98% of what you just heard. To suggest that let's take for a moment their concerns as accurate. I take them serious, but let's take them as accurate. The PUD has nothing to do with any of that. You're not locking in anything with regards to the drainage of this site by the PUD. If you deny this request, we leave here tonight and the drainage of the site has absolutely been totally unaltered. Absolutely. So be clear. Be clear. Whatever decision you make tonight, know it has nothing to do on the drainage. I want to be clear about that. I also want to be clear that the 36-inch pipe is part of the approved drainage plan. It was approved by this commission. It was approved by your staff. The reason that it's there is because all of the water that you see on the left of the dotted line used to flow into the Flowers Ditch. The Flowers Ditch is on the other side of the 100-foot no-cut right-of-way. So we could have either sought to penetrate that no-cut area and send the water where it was always going, which was into that ditch, or Mr. Weiner, at his cost, could buy about 1,800 feet of 36-inch pipe, catch the water, bring it to the east, let the water then outfall onto his property, which those pictures that you see, that's a settlement basin. It's supposed to catch the settlement. It's doing its job. To the extent that some sediment may have gotten out of that, then we need to go back and repair, do normal maintenance on the silt fencing and those items. But what you see there, during a construction project is absolutely normal, and that's what it was supposed to do. It will not do that when everything is completed. Where this outfall is, the outfall flows across our property into its natural drain, which happens to be where the Flowers ditch comes out, which happens to be at the far corner of Mr. Viola's property. So he's right. The corner of his property does take a lot of water. And it does take some water from our property. It's always taken water from our property, and it takes all of the water coming out of the Flowers ditch, which has nothing to do with us. So I would simply tell you what I told you originally. We take their concerns very seriously. We have an approved drainage plan. Our engineer is here this evening. We are going to abide by that drainage plan. We are going to continue to have dialogue with Mr. Viola, and if there are issues there that we need to address, we are committed to doing that. But that has nothing to do with the plan that is before you this evening. With regards to the boat launch, we are simply identifying that that is how we want to use part of this green space. The details of how it will be built will have to be done in a permitting process that would have to include the parish staff, the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, and the Corps of Engineers. So it would be very premature to start talking about the details of that site. We are simply here telling you we want to add the amenity of a boat launch. Whether what the materials look like, what is actually going to be on the ground out there will depend on that permitting process. It's been a long time since I've come up here and had somebody tell me, I don't want any bigger houses. Give me some of those small houses. But I think that's what I heard Mr. Stakelum say. He didn't want the bigger houses because it would cause more runoff. He would rather us have smaller houses. In fairness, what we're talking about is a minimal change. We're not talking about vastly changing the size of the houses with regards to modifying the side setbacks on the smaller lots. You have seen many times with regards to garden home sections or garden home developments where we go to a 0 lot line sometimes. Here we're going to have 5 on each side. Not uncommon, not going to create a problem. No reason to be afraid of that modification. You've had a lot thrown at you, and I want to remind you again, what we're asking tonight, what is really before you tonight is a PUD overlay. You sitting as a zoning commission, you're being asked to grant that overlay, which doesn't change the layout, which only modifies the setbacks in the manner that I spoke about before. The modification of the setbacks, as I have suggested, does not in any way affect our neighbors or anybody around us, and we would respectfully request your approval this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Let's clean up a couple of things right now. The water has historically, not all of the water has flowed into the Flowers ditch. As you can see from the colored wetlands areas, those areas are mostly self-contained. So when the water gets into those areas, it tends to stay there until it sinks down in the ground. What they've done right now is they've come up with a plan. They've graded the place. They've taken some of the land off the hills and put it in these low areas. They've added catch basins to catch the runoff, and then all that runoff is being piped right onto Mr. Viola's property. Obviously, no one with the parish has ever walked the property. If they had, we wouldn't be here tonight talking about building a boat launch where there's 2 feet of water. I would suggest that we need to take a more reserved approach on this, and that's because the elephant in the room tonight that my opposing counsel hasn't mentioned is the Scenic Rivers permit. They will have to get a Scenic Rivers permit, no question about it. But what they want is they want the parish to approve this PUD so that when they go before the Scenic Rivers permit with that boat launch on that drawing, they can tell the Wildlife and Fisheries the parish has approved the boat launch. And that's why we're here tonight opposing the boat launch issue, because we don't believe that the parish should approve a boat launch in 2 feet of water so that they can go back to Wildlife and Fisheries and seek a permit under the guise that the parish, you folks, have approved this. I'm not opposed to bigger houses. Have no problem with that. All I pointed out to you all was that when you build bigger houses, you get bigger footprints. And when you get a bigger footprint, you get more runoff. And the drainage plan right now is putting too much runoff on Mr. Viola's property. If we put bigger houses in there, that runoff is only going to increase. That was all I was pointing out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other rebuttal for opposition? Yes, sir.
Dwight Dosky, 33 Hyacinth. I'm not so sure that I can say it any more eloquently than PJ did, but again, I think that it is belittling our concerns when one says that increasing the size of houses and increasing the footprint is not going to affect the runoff. Yes, you all did approve a drainage plan. You approved a drainage plan for the footprint that Mr. Wayner said that he was going to establish on that property. When that changes, so must the drainage plan as well. To think that it's not going to affect it is ridiculous. Having moved in there after Katrina, after losing a house, having watched the water now twice, once with Isaac, once just a few months ago, rise to levels that had never risen before, having watched me lose a workshop twice, I can tell you that I do not have the infinite patience to continue to weather those storms and those floods, nor do I have the infinite resources that Mr. Wayner may have to go ahead and just raise other things. I can't keep going the way it's going, and I know that the silt issue is making it worse each and every time. I'm one of those people, as PJ told you, who bought in to a place that originally had 5 feet of water behind it where I could bring a boat in, and I can now just put on my boots and wade right across without ever getting any water on my feet. I'm asking you all again to table this then until we get a better explanation of how it's not going to affect my lot, how it's not going to affect Mr. Viola's lot, and how it's not going to affect every single person along Flyovers Bayou. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? We have about 1 minute remaining.
Rusty Sitton, I live 23 South Azalea on the other end of Mr. Viola there. I want to talk specifically about the PUD because I think that's something a lawyer is missing. Part of the PUD is to go back into the cutoff to be able to put boat ramps, boat launches to obstruct the flow through that. It will obstruct the flow through that cutoff. Anytime you put anything in a waterway, it's going to obstruct that flow. So that is germane to this PUD, very, very germane. I just bought the house that I own on 23 Azalea, and we had a record flood that 46 inches over my slab. Anytime you cut 50 acres of property that used to be a drainage and is now no longer a drainage, affects everybody upstream. Right now, the bulkheads, everybody's bulkheads are at a certain level. If that is to rise, it's going to cause a big problem for us, everybody upstream. I'm not against progress at all, Mr. Chairman. I'm really not. But I just invested a lot of money here, and I really love this area. And I'd hate to see the houses above this not addressed by tabling this PUD. And let's talk about it a little more in depth, because it will. When you put pilings and boat ramps, boat launches into an existing waterway, it's going to affect us, and that's what we're talking about today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll close it to the public, and I'll bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, I'm hearing y'all's concerns on the drainage and stuff, but as a commission, we have procedures to follow, and what has been presented to us and requested of us is to look at the PUD. That being said, what you're requesting of us, I feel like, as a commissioner, that it's like holding the developer hostage. In other words, you listen to us and you fix this, you table it until it's done. We have procedures with our engineering department, their engineering department, that a drainage plan was approved. I can see, I don't know a lot, but I can see that it's not completed and on the pictures that you have shown us. The boat launch, my understanding, if I'm correct, is going to be on the inside. One boat launch, I did not hear anything about other boat launches in my notes. One boat launch, which would be part of the green space, and that is what we are here to look at, correct? The other portion of this, I've heard Mr. Weiner say that he will continue to work and with y'all's concerns and everything, but we're here just to look at the requests for the PUD, and I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve. Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, Commissioner Casabon makes a good point about the drainage plan. I have a question for staff. Helen? So the engineers are okay with all the drainage plans, is that correct?
According to Mr. Marone, it was already approved by the Planning Commission.
And nothing else has changed to alter that where we have to have engineers review it again, is that correct?
Well, I did not review any of the drainage plans, so I could not confirm that. However, this is the same plan. The main reason why they're requesting the PUD is basically to allow for the setbacks to be
Right.
modified, the flexibility in the setback.
I do have a question for Paul, though.
Yes, sir.
This drawing that was presented to us with this 100-foot no-cut buffer,
Yes,
is that still intact?
yes,
So there'll be no homes or nothing
No.
on that?
no. Not only no homes, it is entirely intact. There's no
Okay, so
swales,
that's
there's no
still-
culverts, it's entirely intact.
Okay, so I was, because initially when I was looking at the actual design here without all those nice little colors on it, right? I was saying that's some awfully deep lots, but that's why.
Right, that's
Okay.
correct, that's correct.
I have to agree with Commissioner Casabon on this. I'll make a motion, I'll second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Randolph?
Mr. Morone,
Yes, sir.
appreciate the way you guys articulated this to us, and yes, we do have a lot of information in front of us to really consider. One of the things that I want to make sure I understand is that the PUD is to provide flexibility, for lack of a better term, for setbacks,
Yes.
side backs,
Yes.
rear backs, whatever. How, with the PUD being presented to provide more flexibility for the setbacks, you said that will do nothing for the lot. So what are the setbacks or the flexibility setbacks providing?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. And let me answer it in a couple of ways. First of all, by modifying the setbacks, it has no impact outside of the lots. In other words, the lot lines, the size, location of each lot on here is totally unchanged by this plan. The footprint that was approved under A4A is exactly the same. All the setback does is it allows, with the flexibility, it would allow us to construct a home closer to the interior lot line on some of the lots, and would allow these limited structures along the back of the lot lines, the raised walkway or a small dock. Other than that, it doesn't allow anything different than is already approved.
Commissioner Lauren?
Yes, sir.
Three questions. I want to make sure that I understand.
I don't think it's working. His light is on, but it's not working.
Just use Martha's light. Use your mic.
Yeah. Use Wendell's mic, maybe.
Let's try this one.
Better.
Right side saddle. Couple of 3 things. Number one, if one of the bones of contention has to do with the boat launch, and as I understand it, what we're saying is that by putting in the boat launch, it does away with the need for boat launches or boat houses on other lots along the river?
It would do away with the need for additional boat launches. The 6 lots that actually front the Tchefuncte River could still have a boathouse like you see along the Tchefuncte, but that would be it as far as even boathouses go.
Okay, well, if you look at lots 38 through 46, they go between the river and the boat launch.
Yes.
Would they be?
No, they would not be allowed to have a boathouse. They would be allowed to have a raised walkway and a small pier, a small dock, but not a boathouse.
Okay. The other question is the boat launch to be a public boat launch or a private boat launch?
No, it will be a private boat launch used only by the residents of Watercross.
Okay, and one last thing for the folks here, and make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Right now, we've gone through tentative and preliminary.
That is correct.
We have not gone through final.
That is correct.
So there will be one more opportunity once they've got it built the way they're proposing. They're going to have to come back before this body for final approval before they can sell a single lot.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, Paul, you have a 25-foot, what's that almost called? 25-foot servitude there in the no-cut buffer. And I understand from one of the comments that the parish has gone in and increased it somehow. And Terry, this may fall in your ballpark, but how could that have been increased from 25 to 40 foot?
As part of the planning process, and I'll look at my engineer to correct me if I misstate this, or perhaps Mr. Hand, but there was an existing servitude that was in place. The parish asked, since Mr. Weiner owned the property, to enlarge that. We did, with full disclosure to the parish that area is subject to this buffer. And the parish asked that we grant that to them, and we did in accordance with their request, subject to the buffer.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Willie?
Paul, back to you mentioned that the drainage plan was approved in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the, I don't have a problem with approving the PRUD change, the setback changes, but if they do increase the runoff, would that plan have to be tweaked any?
Well,
and then the same question to the parish, would they have to approve that? If
it is, I will say this, as Mr. Lauren mentioned, we are still under the supervision, if you will, the oversight would be a better term, of the parish engineering office. We've got to complete the construction of our plan in accordance to what was approved. Your staff will have to inspect that to make sure that we do that and to make sure that it is operating properly. If it is not, then yes, it would be subject to being tweaked.
Because if the increase, in the runoff, then the numbers would be a little bit different, so your plan would have to be a little different, or retention or detention or whatever.
It would, if it is not performing properly when we come back to you for final, it'll have to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Drum?
Paul, I have a question, and bear with me, please.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to figure this out in my head a little bit. Taking the boat launch out of the question right now. Now, if we go with the PUD, does that allow increasing the size of the homes built on that lot?
Because on the small lots, we are reducing the side setbacks. So I think the side setbacks in A4A, 10 feet side. 7.5. So we will be reducing it by 2.5 feet on each side. So by reducing it by 2.5 feet on the garden home lots, conceivably, yes, a larger house could fit on those lots.
Okay, so we originally okayed the construction of this area with the drainage, with the setbacks for that particular piece of property. Now, here's where I kind of go wacko. It's like, you give me a bucket and it's got water in it, and you say, okay, I'm only going to put half a brick in there, so a certain amount of water comes out. Now you want to put a bigger brick in there, so more water is going to come out, but you still got the same drainage system, right?
And it's a good question. And it's such a good question. I'm gonna look to my engineer to help me answer it to make sure that I don't screw it up. But I believe let me let him answer it so I don't guess and get it wrong.
Yeah, not a problem. My name is Tommy Buckle, a principal with Duplantis Design Group. We're the engineers for the subject property. So, as you are well aware, this project is located in the bottom 20th of the Trinfagh drainage basin, right? We're basically near the ultimate outfall of Lake Pontchartrain. The other thing is we have a direct connection to the Flowers Bayou as well as the Trinfagh River. So when we met with engineering, just like we have done for the River Chase development on the south side, as well as the Colonial Nordelac property on the north side, the staff has allowed, engineering staff has allowed us to only provide water quality and not water quantity because of that, and I'll explain why. When we had those major rain events, okay, the Trinfagh River peaked 2 days, day and a half, 20 some odd hours after the major rain event, right? We don't want to do detention. When you're this close to the ultimate outfall, you do not want to provide detention. You're best from a water management perspective to get your water out. Now, we have a unique opportunity because of our direct connection to the Trinfagh River. If we were on the other side of Highway 21 and we had to drain through other subdivisions, we would have to do just what all those other developments are doing, is providing a 25% reduction in the pre-developed flow in accordance with the parish requirements. However, due to the fact that from a modeling perspective, from a water management perspective, the idea is that if you're so far down in the bottom of the basin, you want to get your water out. That's what we had proposed to the parish. Staff had obviously agreed with that. We have a full drainage impacts study that's been submitted to staff. That's been subsequently approved. So we are not providing detention. We are providing water quality through the swales that will be on the site. There's subsurface drainage underneath those swales to correct that runoff. Those vegetated swales will treat total suspended solids, oils and grease, et cetera. That'll be urban runoff, obviously in the post-developed condition. What you're seeing right now as it relates to some of those pictures, that's really kind of what we wanted to happen. When we discharge that water into that low ravine area, and I think they indicated that we had to put some cover over the top of the pipe, they did, because as we daylight that water into that low ravine, we actually want that water to spread out, okay? When that water spreads out, we have the ability to release the total suspended solids, the sediment runoff that's running across the site, onto our site before it actually hits the scenic streams, which is i.e. Flowers and the Trinfagh River. So the plan actually, as you saw in those pictures, as like murky water in the stilling basin settling out, that's actually a good thing. We're achieving what we wanted to have happen. Now, obviously, we were out there today. We noted some things that need to be kind of cleaned up by the contractor, and we're going to reload those things. We have already reloaded those things to Mr. Wayner to get back to the contractor. So it's performing the way we want it to from that regard. But I hope I answered your question.
Does the size of the house on the
lots yes, thank you. So the size, when you go through a drainage manual calculations, you deal with, quarter acre lots, half acre lots, acre lots, et cetera, right? So changing the side setback from 7.5 feet or from 25 feet to 20 feet does not change the runoff coefficient as it relates to that house. These were developed as, I think, quarter acre lots is what the initial calculations are, and that's basically the same density that's there because the number of lots are not changing. So if we were to take this plan and change it to sea of asphalt parking lot, right, and it wasn't a residential neighborhood anymore, yes, there would be impacts. Yes, there would have to be upsized storm pipe in order to convey the water adequately to the outfall locations. But that is not the case. So.
Any further question, Commissioner Drum?
No, you still have a bigger house, more water runs off, it still comes out, bigger brick in the same bucket.
No, it doesn't.
I think, though, I think when they run the calculations, they are not running the calculation based on what would be the buildable site with the setbacks. They are running it on the entire lot size. So the size of the house that is put on that lot would not change the drainage plan.
Again, I'm kind of dingy here. If you have an acre lot and there's no house on it, there's not going to be that much water running off of it. Now, if you have an acre lot and you put half an acre house on it, that's half an acre of water that's not going to be absorbed, and it's got to go someplace.
But that's where
But the calculations are run on the entire lot. They're not run on what the buildable size would be within that lot. I guess is maybe where the confusion's coming in.
That's correct. The house.
Excuse me, ma'am, we don't want any comments from the audience, only the petitioners or to whomever the commission addresses. Thank you.
That's correct. So if you look in the runoff curve numbers in the stormwater, in a stormwater management manual, you can look at DOT, you could look at NRCS, any of the published data maps, okay? They break residential lots down into single-family and multifamily, townhomes, and then they further break down single-family into acre lots, half-acre lots, quarter-acre lots, and I believe it goes to an eighth of an acre lot, okay? So based on the size of your parcels that you're developing, you select a runoff coefficient based on the size of the property for single-family residential. You don't, there's not a, to my knowledge, there's not a chart that exists that says, well, if you got a 2,500 square foot home, the runoff coefficient is 0.55, and if you got a 3,000 square foot home, the runoff coefficient is 0.59. It's not broken down to that. It's broken down to lot sizes. And then all I was getting at is that the lot sizes are not changing. I mean, if one were to go back and try to run the numbers, I guess we could try to do that, but I would not suspect at this point that that is going to have any impact to the size of what is actually being constructed as far as the stormwater infrastructure that's in the ground. Because understand, we're not routing this in and out of a detention pond. We're allowing this to be treated from a water quality perspective and then to be discharged. So your concern is a rate of runoff, right?
Well, the rate of runoff would have an impact on wherever it runs off to, right?
Correct. So if it runs into a lower lying area on our property, that ultimately, so the other thing I guess you got to understand is that the original drainage area map that went to Flowers, the Flowers Bayou or Flowers Estates, a ditch, is about 35 acres, and the post-developed drainage area map that we put together is 35 acres. So the area that's running off to that site is the exact same as what it was previously. And that's not changed with this proposed PUD overlay.
Well, I thank you for all your not understood information.
I have another question for you.
Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, don't go away. I wanted to ask you something. Get back up there. Because our engineering is not here, this is, again, everything that we're talking about comes under the planning portion of the drainage. But we do respect y'all's trying to explain where we're coming from. Do you know, because our engineers are not here, we have the model, the drainage model, and I don't know if y'all are aware of it, but when you talked about the other developments on the north, south, all these, can you tell me if they were all put into our drainage model and that model tells us the flow, or is that something engineering would have to tell me?
Yeah, I would probably defer to engineering in the sense of exactly what is and there is not inside of that model. Yeah.
What I'm referring to is years ago, we had a model that incorporated like the Chinchuba and all the areas in Mandeville, that we were putting in all these subdivisions and stuff, and it told us where the runoff, the flow, they could anticipate by the number of homes and so on, exactly where the flow and how it would work.
Well, I mean,
once
from
everything was in
that
place.
regard, engineering, when we first met with engineering in the very early stages of this process, that was one of the things we discussed, was not providing the 25% reduction, but actually getting the water out. So that's probably related to the fact of the overall model and where we
Okay.
sit within the basin.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, Paul, maybe you engineers, these pictures, and I believe you made the comment that this is what you're looking for, and that as the water runs off, it's going to have sediment in it, and these are going to be settling bases, I'm going to refer to them as. Is that correct?
Yes, what you see, the outfall of that pipe is a settlement basin. That's
Okay.
correct.
Now, who's going to maintain the, keeping that at a given level and keeping the sediment out of it?
Well, remember, we're in the construction process. So what you have is open dirt out there, okay? I also mentioned prior that in our plan, we have a very detailed water quality section that requires us to treat the water, and Mr. Buckle alluded to that a minute ago. So when everything is completed, you are not going to have drainage over open dirt. There's a series of grass swales and other cleansing mechanisms so that when the water comes out of this pipe, it's not going to look like you see here. That's the whole purpose of the water quality improvements that we've got to put in place to get this to a final submittal.
So when we get down to a year after final's been granted and all that, we should not see all the sediment in the runoff.
That's correct. And you'll remember, too, that as part of the final, if and when we get to that point, there's a warranty obligation that's put in place for roads, streets, ditches, drainage, and so forth.
Right.
So for us to get that approval, we're going to at least have to have hydroseeded these ditches and things of that nature, okay? So it will be that not only will you have a look at it to make sure that it's working properly, but if the grass hasn't totally grown in those areas, there's a year of warranty on us to make sure that that happens so that it doesn't look like that when it's done.
But as what I'm getting to is that your settlement basin, okay, when it dries out, you're going to seed it and all this and everything. But at some point in time, the sediment is going to, or the runoff's going to continue to build the soil in these areas that where the grass is and everything. How is that going to be cleaned and cleansed so that so you continue to have
right? Let me clarify one thing before I answer that. It is a settlement basin now, but in other words, when it is acting as a settlement basin now because of the large amount of sediment that is coming through the system because we are under construction. Correct. When we complete construction, you will not have that type of sediment coming through the system. Before it comes out of that pipe, it is going to be clean water. It's going to be clean water at that point. So you're not going to have sediment building up once we're done with the project and all the infrastructure is in place.
Yeah, can I have one thing to add to that? So in our contract documents, we have an erosion control plan and we also have a SWIP manual. In both of those documents, it requires the contractor to temporarily clean this area out of sediment and to stabilize it prior to completion of construction. So I mean, he's going to have to address this area, which is right at the discharge of that pipe, prior to completion of construction. So
I mean, all this is pretty heavily wooded from what I'm seeing in the pictures and everything. So as leaves and stuff fall, there's going to be a certain amount of buildup in these areas. How is that going to be maintained?
The natural, sir, I guess you would have to understand the natural topography of the site, look at the topography and understand how it drains. The pipe elevations at which this storm pipe discharges is probably around elevation 5 or 6. the topography downstream of this, which is very clearly inundated on some of the exhibits that it said covered by water, is elevations 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're discharging well above the natural ground as it relates to allowing that water to run off. It's going to continue to drain into the low area just like it drained into the low area prior to this development. So, I mean, the areas when the rivers come up where water inundates these back of these people's properties is going to continue to do that. I mean, we're
When the river comes up, that's when you get the
That's right.
cleaning of the leaves and pine straw and all the rest of it. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
A question for the engineer again, sorry. I can't see the topography just looking at this map.
Understood.
But if you're saying that eventually with the drainage of this 36-inch pipe, that the water's going to be pretty clean coming out of it, correct?
Yeah, once they stabilize the site. Right now, it's an active construction site.
Right.
We have type D soils. They're very clay material. It's the sediment's easily suspended. So yeah, the contractor's fighting those issues, but that's
I can understand
Right.
that. And it looks like now that 36-inch pipe ends at lot 53.
that is correct.
Why doesn't it not continue?
Because the natural topography daylight's right there. If we
goes
were
up
to
from
look at,
there?
yes, no, it goes down, like you're in a low, that's where the low point is. That's why they said it looks like you had to put dirt on top of the pipe to bury the pipe, is because we've extended the pipe to basically the lowest point of where it makes sense to extend it to. You could not continue to extend that pipe west, or otherwise it would actually impede other drainage, if that makes sense.
Would it impede, or would you just kind of build like a pipeline, like the Alaskan pipeline on the back of lots 52 all the way into the body of water?
It would impede the natural flow of drainage from lots, lots 49, 50, 48. That water also drains, those lots, the rear of those lots, 51, et cetera, all drain to the north, right? So if you extended
Right.
that pipe across,
Right.
First off, I really think there's nothing to extend it to based on the existing topography out there. It just all starts to get really low. So I mean, wherever you decide to discharge it is going to be the point where you discharge it.
Okay, so I can see how it's a big, large sediment spot, basically. So what about Mr. Viola's concern about, you believe that's going to all go away once the subdivision is complete?
Well, I mean,
And it'll be just like the way it was before,
yeah, I
which
mean,
was wet already.
right, I understand.
Is that correct?
Yes.
It was already a wet area.
Yeah, I mean,
It was never wet. I understand,
Point of order,
excuse me.
unless he specifically
I
addresses someone to
understand-
come to the
I understand
podium.
that area is low.
Yes.
Where Mr. Viola lives. I understand that, you
Right.
know.
The
I
sediment- the
lived in
sediment will
Flower-
go away. Your question
My
is the
father built one of the
sediment.
first houses in Flowers Estates. I understand that. But what I'm saying is I can understand how before construction, you could have some tendencies to have additional sediment come out and possibly go on his property. My concern is, for him, obviously, is this not going to continue after everything's done?
correct. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions by the commission? If not, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Casabon, second by Commissioner Davis. Please vote. Motion carries. We'll just give a few moments for the public to clear. Commissioner Davis.
On a good note, LSU won.
LSU defeated Rice 5-2. So Commissioner Lauren, you're still in the hunt. All right, we're going to proceed. 2016-233-ZC, existing zoning, A3 Suburban District, Proposed zoning, A3 Suburban District and Manufactured Housing Overlay. The parcel, 12,500 square feet. The petitioner, Samantha Hamilton. The owner, Tamland Investments, Inc. Parcel is located on the south side of Browns Village Road, west of Dania Street, north of Donis Drive, being Lot 3, Square A, Brown Village Subdivision, Ward 9, District 14. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses, including manufactured homes. Staff does not have any objections to the request and recommends the request for mobile home housing overlay designation be approved.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you would kindly come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
I'm Samantha Hamilton. Our address is 568 Beechwood Drive, Slidell, Louisiana.
And the reason that you've made this request, ma'am?
I would like to get permission to put a mobile home on a property that I'm buying. I pay monthly notes every month. And I'm buying it from Mr. James Lindsay. He got the map and everything. And I work really hard to build a foundation for my children, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to start with. So.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none at this time, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Drum. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, Ms. Hamilton, the owner of the lot is Tamland Investments. Are you purchasing this lot from him?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
If you would please come to the podium, sir, and so we can hear you.
My name is Jamie Lindsay, 81116 Highway 1083, Bush, Louisiana.
Okay, you're selling this parcel of ground to Ms. Hamilton?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to be sure that we weren't starting a mobile home park or something like that.
No, sir. The Browns Village Road has been zoned for mobile homes for the last 50 years or so, and this would not change anything, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to wait until at least one commissioner returns. Our bylaws state that we have to have 8 commissioners to perform a vote. We currently have 7. We do have a motion, and we now have 8. Okay. We will, Commissioner Kazabon is familiar with this particular case, and just to refresh, we now have 8 commissioners, so we can proceed. We do have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, and a second by Commissioner Drum. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. 2016-244-ZC, existing zoning, A2 Suburban District, proposed zoning, CB1 Community-Based Facilities District, and Rural Overlay. Parcel, 80 acres. Petitioner, Linda Bankston. The owner, LA Extreme Paintball of Louisiana, LLC. The parcel is located on the south side of Dr. T.J. Smith Senior Expressway, east of South Receiving Station Road, being 37000 Dr. T.J. Smith Senior Expressway, Slidell, Ward 9, District 14. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed in a manner which would allow for the preservation of natural landscape of the site. The site is currently developed as a paintball field. The zoning change to CB1 is being requested in order to bring the existing use into compliance with the appropriate zoning, and the request to rezone to rural overlay is to allow the future construction of a single-family residence on the site. Staff does not have any objections to the request and recommends the request for CB1 and rural overlay designation be approved.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, ma'am.
Yes. I'm Linda Bankston. I live at 1432 7th Street, Slidell 70458.
And the reason for your request, ma'am?
As Ms. Landry said, to be in compliance with the zoning. We've been operating for 12 years, and we didn't realize we weren't CB1.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Drum. Commissioner Davis.
Ms. Bankston?
Yes.
Yeah, I understand about the CB1 and to be in compliance. Do we need a rural overlay over the entire 80 acres? Is there a reason for that?
Not necessarily. I mean, maybe Mrs. Bankston can identify the area where a house could be built.
Do you know where you'll be?
Not at this point. Right now, we're only using a very small corner of the property for the paintball facility, and the rest of it is completely undeveloped and just somewhere out there.
Well, it's just that,
You know.
it's actually a benefit to you because we make the whole thing rural overlay and you get rid of the paint ball. You could always sell Christmas trees. Just.
Well, and there are a lot of trees there, so.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We've already got that, but thank you. So Commissioner Davis, I think, is in support of it. We have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, a second by Commissioner Dougherty. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-245-ZC, existing zoning, A3 Suburban District and A1 Suburban District. Proposed zoning, PF1 Public Facilities District. The parcel, 1.85 acres. The petitioner, Lonnie Johnson. The owner, St. Tammany Fire District, number 13. The parcel is located in the northwest corner of Louisiana Highway 1077 and McDonald Road, Ward 1, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses. Staff does not have any objection to the request, considering the purpose of the PF1 zoning district is to provide for the location of governmental and other institutional uses to the public in the surrounding area. Note, the zoning change is being requested to allow for a fire station to be constructed on the site. Staff recommends request to PF1 designation be approved.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Oh, there he is.
Sir, if you please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Lonnie Johnson, 1353 Highway 190, Covington.
Thank you, sir. And the reason for your request?
We're moving the water tank that we have currently on Railroad Avenue across from McDonald Road. I'd like to move the tank on our own property itself. It's on private property now.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission, and thank you, sir, for your service to the community. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, just one question, please. Sorry. It's pretty small lot, huh? 100 foot wide?
Yes.
And what are you planning on doing with it?
We have a water tank presently on Railroad Avenue across from McDonald Road. It's about 25,000 gallon water tank. We'll move it on our property. That's for fire protection.
And with the size of those water tanks, it will meet all the setback requirements. Is that correct?
We will,
The fire
They would-
station's there.
they will
Correct.
have to make it work within the
Okay.
setback.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon, second by Commissioner Willie. Any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-253-CZ. Existing zoning, A4 Single-Family Residential District and HC2 Highway Commercial District. Proposed zoning, PF1 Public Facilities District. The parcel, 28,000 square feet. The petitioner, Jeanette B. Gordon. The owner, El Sadi United Ministries. Pardon me? Sadai. Thank you for the correction. The parcel is located on the west side of Sunset Drive, north of U.S. Highway 190, being 429 Sunset Drive, Slidell, Ward 9, District 11. Staff?
There is an existing church on the site. The objective of the request is to bring the current use in compliance with the appropriate zoning and to allow for an addition to the church. Staff does not have any objection to the request and would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please state your name and address, ma'am.
Jeanette B. Gordon, 1529 Shylock Drive, Slidell, Louisiana, 70461.
Thank you, ma'am. And the reason for your request?
Yes, we're looking to expand the facility we're on now, and it's at 14429 Sunset Drive. And with that additional space where we're doing the construction, we thought it would be advisable to change the zoning. And this facility, we bought it as a church 17 years ago, and the church prior to that was there, and I guess it's been in existence probably 30 years or more. They've been there. It's been a church. We're going to leave it as a church function. And we, on the south side is commercial, on the east side is commercial. So, and we're right behind Circle K and Slidell off of 190.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the request? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Lauren. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I ask for a vote. Motion carries. 2016-254-ZC, existing zoning, A1 Suburban District, proposed zoning, A1 Suburban District and manufactured housing overlay. The parcel, 1 acre. The petitioner, Tina Willie Davis. The owner, Mary Willie. The parcel is located on the east side of El Glass Road, south of Louisiana Highway 40, being 82276 El Glass Road, Folsom, Ward 2, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential and agricultural uses. Staff does not have any objection to the request and recommends request to manufactured housing overlay designation be approved.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. If you would state your name and address.
Mary Willie, 82276 El Glass Road.
And the reason for the request, ma'am?
Well, my house burnt down February 29th, and I want to put a trailer there.
Yes, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Willie, second. Any further discussion? We have a motion to approve, second by Commissioner Casabon, second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. The next case, 2016-255ZC, I'll ask Vice Chairman Commissioner Dougherty to preside. I will recuse myself as I have a conflict of interest as I am employed by Money Hill Plantation. So I will turn it over to Commissioner Dougherty.
I understand.
All right, the case number 2016-255ZC, existing zoning is A2. Suburban district, proposed zoning is HC2, highway commercial district. It's 17.15 acres. The petitioner is Jeffrey D. Shane. Owner is Money Hill Plantation. Parcel located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 21, north of Money Hill Drive, south of Epson Drive, Ward 5, District 6. Staff?
Okay. The 2025 Future Land Use Plan calls for the area to be developed as a planned district, including residential uses and conservation areas. Staff acknowledges the presence of HC2 zoning just south of Money Hill Drive. However, no commercial development has taken place in the area since the rezoning was approved through the comprehensive zoning. At this time, staff does not see any compelling reasons to recommend approval of the requested zoning change to allow for any additional commercial zoning in the area. Note, the zoning change to HC2 was submitted for the same site during the comprehensive rezoning. However, it was not approved by the council. Prior to the comprehensive rezoning, the same site was zoned R Rural Zoning District. Staff recommends that the request for HC2 zoning commercial district designation be denied.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Dougherty. Good evening, Commission. My name is Jeff Shane. I'm with the Jones Fussell Law Firm and Company Covington, and I have the pleasure of representing Money Hill Plantation, LLC, which is, of course, the owner and developer of Money Hill subdivision, as you know it. If I could, Mr. Chair, could I ask if there's anyone else at the hearing this evening that intends to speak for or against in the audience?
Yes, I don't think we have any cards. Anyone else wish to speak on this case, 2016-255, part of the Money Hill Plantation, requesting for a commercial zoning? I don't see anyone, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, sir. I may be able to be a little more efficient in the presentation and save time to answer questions that you may have. I think the brief history as it relates to Money Hill, hopefully all of you are aware of it, but the Goodyear family owns approximately 5,800 acres in this area of the parish, which in my view and the view of many, because it's award-winning development over the last 25 years, they have developed certainly one of the premier residential conservation and environmental meccas, really, in St. Tammany Parish. We come before you this evening with regard to property that the Goodyear family owns along Highway 21 that they wish to have rezoned from A2 to HC2. And I believe that if you have read and listened to the staff comments closely this evening, they have indicated to you that there is other property in the area that's zoned commercial, and that this parcel sought commercial zoning at the time of comprehensive and was denied. So I think it's my job to explain to you this evening why we have petitioned and what conditions are different today than perhaps in the past when commercial zoning was considered for this site. I guess first and foremost, hopefully you are aware that Money Hill subdivision now includes a very important infrastructure component known as Money Hill Parkway, which is a multi-million-dollar road approximately 2.5 miles long that was built in a west-northwest direction from the Clubhouse subdivision area, and which provides a new entranceway onto Highway 21. That is a feature that not only is a safety feature and a convenience feature as it relates to providing a second primary access to the subdivision, but maybe most importantly, it's a feature that was not there when this 17 acres was considered at the time of comprehensive. For those of you that are familiar with the area or perhaps have studied maps, looked at the Googles, looked at your staff report, what we have today is the intersection of Money Hill Parkway in alignment with the entranceway to Whippoorwill Grove, which is on the other side of Highway 21. So to give you some more details, if any of us lived in Whippoorwill Grove or Money Hill or Grande Hills to the south, and I might add that those three subdivisions alone consist today of about 650 households. If we wanted a gallon of gas or a quart of milk, we would have to drive 11 miles to Claiborne Hill to the Shell station, or if we ventured to the north, about 3.5 miles to the Fifth Ward School, to the convenience store that's just beyond it to the right. So the Goodyear family, who intends to continue to own and regulate and oversee this commercial property, this is not being zoned to sell off to others because this is a gateway to their development. They commissioned someone to do a market study that determined that the time is right for them to develop a commercial component to Money Hill. And so the first step in that commercialization is to develop a general store gasoline center. Essentially a general store where you can pick up things that you typically get in a convenience store, but also the opportunity to get gasoline. Now you might say, well, why 17 acres? You don't need that, Jeff, for a general store or for a gasoline station. You don't. But the Goodyears, as they have done with all of their property from day one, they master planned their dream, and that vision for the development of this commercial area along the highway will include much more than a general store and a gas station. In due course, it will include retail shops, it will include professional offices, it will include a restaurant, it will include a conservation center and an area, again, of environmental preservation. So there will be a variety of uses that in due course will be there. So if you can picture planning the checkerboard and deciding which square on the checkerboard you're going to develop first. The other thing that the marketing study told us is that for safety reasons, this particular parcel on the north and east side of Money Hill Parkway would be much safer as it relates to retail traffic getting off of Highway 21 and back onto Highway 21. If you look at the parcel that's currently zoned HC2, which is on the south and east side of the intersection of Money Hill Parkway and 21, that is right after you come over the rise or the hill or whatever we want to refer to it. And again, if you're not familiar with the area, I may not be terribly articulate. I can only assure you that when I drove up there today at noon, and granted I was doing 60 miles an hour, it's pretty amazing how fast it comes up on you. So the thinking is that if we put it just beyond the intersection of Money Hill Parkway, not only will it be a level area or an area where you don't have obscurement, you're not coming over a hill, but we'll also have the benefit of using the D-cell and the XL lanes that are already constructed along that side of Highway 21. So I would suggest to you that if we look at the history of what the Goodyear family has done in this development in terms of being thoughtful and using good planning principles, not thinking only of themselves and of economic return, the idea that they have tried to plan a commercial development at this location, not only for their benefit, but for the benefit of all. And I might add, we have a lot of cars that travel from the north part of the parish and Washington Parish that come through this Highway 21 corridor every day. And I suspect the opportunity to stop and get a gallon of gas or get a Coca-Cola, or perhaps if you have a problem of some sort, to stop at a commercial location, would be not only something that would be comforting, but something that, again, would provide for the betterment of the health, safety, and welfare of people that live and travel in that area. I think I've given you some logistic reasons as it relates to the development and construction of the Money Hill Parkway and its intersection, the symmetry that it now creates, the development of the area with the residential homes, and I think perhaps last but not least, the reason that we don't have opposition here this evening. And why might that be? Of all those homes in that area, those are the folks that want the gallon of gas and the quart of milk. They're excited about the possibility of having this commercial development in that area. I tell you that because that feedback has come to my client, not only from the residents of Money Hill subdivision, but also from Whippoorwill and others in the area. So I would ask you to take these thoughts and ideas into consideration, and that you recommend to the council a change of zoning to HC2 as requested, and allow the Goodyears to continue and perpetuate the good planning that they've shown for Money Hill subdivision, but also for the betterment of all of the people of St. Tammany Parish and those that travel through the Highway 21 corridor. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to address them when you're ready. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of this zoning change? Anyone wish to speak opposing this zoning change? I'll close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For full disclosure, I do own property in Money Hill. Is it working? Can I use the community one? Again, for full disclosure, I own property in Money Hill, but that in no way is a conflict. This is part of their overall master plan and is something that I know the residents of the area desperately want. I very much appreciate staff recommendations all the time. In fact, that's usually my guide. But in this case, I have to disagree, and I'd like to put forth the motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Richard to approve, seconded by Mr. Drum. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Sorry.
Mr. Davis.
Sorry. Jeff, can I have a couple of questions, please?
Yeah.
Thanks. Do the Goodyears own that property south of Fairgrounds that's currently Highway Commercial 2?
They do.
So why would you need more Highway Commercial 2 if you've already got the property zoned Highway Commercial 2 just south of this? And
Sure.
you can build something there.
Primarily for the safety reasons that I expressed. As you come over the hill, the first property is to the right, and that would not be conducive and safe. That's what the marketing study told us as it relates to a retail in and out. For that reason, our master plan has developed that area to consist of offices, hopefully one day corporate offices, but certainly individual offices as it relates to professionals, whether that would be a dentist, lawyer, whatever, because that would be a lower amount of traffic that would come into the area and one that we could better regulate. So there's a safety reason to want to have it on this new parcel on the north side.
So if you have the whole master plan, would you go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and take that Highway Commercial 2 and downgrade it to the NC1 if that's all you're going to put there?
No, sir, because...
I don't understand.
Because,
I don't understand.
I'm sorry.
Why have
Wait till you
additional Highway
finish.
Commercial 2 then?
I'll wait till you finish.
That's what I'm saying. Why have additional, if you just got through telling us you don't plan on putting Highway Commercial 2 property where you currently have Highway Commercial 2, I don't understand.
Okay.
Isn't that what you?
Yes, sir. I'm waiting for
Okay.
you to finish.
I'm finished. I'm
Okay, well,
finished.
No, I interrupted you a minute ago. That's the only
Okay.
point I'm making, Mr. Davis.
Okay.
You
I'm
speak
finished.
as long as you want, and when
I'm
you're
fine.
ready for me to speak, I'll
I'm
speak to you.
ready for you to speak.
Okay. Now, are you referring to the tract that we're asking to be rezoned, or the
No.
tract that's already zoned?
The tract that's already zoned Highway Commercial 2, which the Goodyears own, just south of this area, and you're telling me because of safety reasons that you wanted to put less intense density there,
Office, corporate
office places,
Sure.
which is really NC1.
No, sir.
You still saying it's Highway Commercial 2?
Yes, sir. The scale,
Okay. Okay, that's all I asked.
Let me
That's all I asked.
let me finish.
Okay.
I'd like to have the chance to finish if I
Sure,
could.
go ahead.
Because I want you to understand, the scale of the office that we plan on the south side requires HC2 zoning as it relates to potential height, size of footprint, et cetera.
Okay.
It's hard for you and I to imagine when we'll have an office building there of that magnitude, meaning anytime soon. But as you know, a master plan takes a look and tries to prepare for all components. So we believe as the future develops, that will be the area where we'll have the corporate campus. And we do need the HC2 there.
Okay. I just question why staff is against this then. Out of curiosity, why, Helen?
Our staff report speaks for itself. There isn't some existing HC2 just south of the Money Hill Drive, and there hasn't been any development at this time. Also, there was a request during the comprehensive rezoning to go to HC2, and the council did not approve it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Ms. Casabon?
No, I was just going to say that this is a development that has begun by St. Tammany residents, Mr. Goodyear and his family, and it has been a very thoughtful, well-used, well-developed community. And this is, to me, an addition to that community, which will not only benefit Money Hill, but the people around it, because it is a very desolate road, because there's not, like he said, anywhere that you could stop, and I've traveled it a lot. So this would be something welcoming. And also, I could see it as that part of our parish being developed into some really nice corporate centers and things where people can have conferences and things, within that. So I think that's where the amount of land that we need and also the zoning is correct.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the HC2. Please vote. Let's see, I haven't voted yet. That would be the 8th vote. So that would, pardon? Yeah, that's where, yeah, yes. All right, there, my vote is reflected now, and it's approved 8-0. Thank you. All right. While we switch out again, be sure he's not on the phone.
He can see you on the CD.
2016-258-ZC, existing zoning A2 Suburban District, proposed zoning A2 Suburban District and rural overlay. The parcel, 5.002 acres. The petitioner, Zachary and Heather Davis. The owner, Zachary and Heather Davis. The parcel is located on the south side of River Road, east of Airport Road, being 74643 River Road, Covington, Ward 3, District 2. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with new residential uses compatible with the surrounding uses. The objective of the request is to allow for the construction of a barn on the site. Considering the size of the property and the rural character of the area, staff has no objection to the request and recommends approval of the rural overlay designation.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Heather Davis. My current address is 20075 Linden Street in Covington.
And the reason for your request?
We are constructing a new home, and we would like this barn to house things like boats and trailers so that they're not visible.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Randolph, any further comment? Commissioner Casabon, any further comment? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. The next two cases, we're going to read both cases. However, we're going to have the petitioner present a single presentation, and we will vote on them separately. 2016-261-ZC, existing zoning, A1 Suburban District, proposed zoning, A2 Suburban District and A3 Suburban District. The parcel, 24.14 acres. The petitioner, Tim Henning. The owner, James and Sandy Wood. The parcel is located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 1077, north of Tantella Ranch Road, Ward 1, District 3. The second case that will be in conjunction with this is ZC 04-07-055. The existing zoning, a major amendment to the PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay, an addition of 21.879 acres. The parcel, 228.321 acres. The petitioner, Lonesome Development, LLC, care of Tim Henning. The owner, James and Sandy Wood, and Lonesome Development. The parcel is located on the east of Louisiana Highway 1077 and on the west side of Tantella Ranch Road. I take that it's Ward 1, District 3. Mr. Shane. Oh, I'm sorry, staff.
The A2 Suburban District is being requested to allow for the creation of a 2.254 acre parcel of land for the existing single-family residence to be sold separately. The remaining 21.879 acre portion of the site is requested to be rezoned to A3 to be added to the adjacent residential PUD development, and staff would like to recommend approval for the request to rezone to A2 and A3. In regards to the major amendment to the PUD and the addition of 21.879 acres, the requested amendments of the originally approved subdivision consist of a reconfiguration of the roads and the lots, resulting in an improvement of the circulation, a reduction of the total number of ponds from 5 small ponds to 3 large ponds to improve the drainage of the site, an increase in the total acreage of green space from 59.78 acres to 67.565 acres, and the addition of active and passive amenities, the increase of size of the buffer along Highway 1077 and Tantella Ranch Road, and the addition of 21.879 acres to the site proposed to be developed with single-family residential lot, making for a total of 296 residential lot with an average lot size of 15,000 square feet. All the required elements for the PUD have been provided, and staff would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington. I represent Lonesome Development, LLC, which is the owner and developer of the current subdivision known as Spring Lakes, and also Mr. Henning, who is a principal in Lonesome Development and is under contract to purchase this adjoining parcel. So we come to you this evening in hopes that you will consider the rezoning of the adjoining parcel that we have under contract to purchase. I believe the staff report really delineates each component of the PUD and what we hope to do. I don't mean to make it simplistic, but I will just say some things that I think would hopefully catch your ear as being important. The change of zoning to A2 is to accommodate the existing home that will continue to be a parcel, and now the A2 zone would make that parcel properly zoned. The remainder of the tract would be incorporated into the PUD. As Ms. Lambert said, it's easy to talk about this particular PUD in that we meet or exceed all of the kind of critical benchmarks that we look at when we talk about PUDs in terms of diversity, green space, drainage, buffers, things of that nature. Hopefully you picked up on something that I think is very important, and that is that if in fact you were to change the zoning to A3, it could conceivably allow for another 43 lots on the track. With the design that we have suggested, we are only seeking 33 lots, and that density is actually 1.5. And I know all of you as experienced commission members know that is a very low, and I would say modest or conservative ratio as it relates to units per acre in a PUD. I know it sounds somewhat trite, but I do think it's important. These 33 lots will continue the good things that are happening in Spring Lake, meaning things like being a part of a parish-approved drainage system, having larger detention ponds as noted, central sewerage and water, which is not something that is common in all areas in the Goodby community because they just simply don't have the availability. So we are excited about Spring Lake. I drove up there today for the first time in 3 or 4 months. If you haven't driven lately and you happen to be in the area, it's worth the effort to go to Goodby and go north about 2 miles. You will be, I think, very pleased with what you see. There's a gorgeous lake as you enter the entrance, and there's some very nice homes that are being built there. It's going to be another one, I think, of the very nice communities that we have in the greater Goodby area. So without rattling on any longer, I think it would be better to let you ask me questions if you have any. We obviously ask that you take separate votes and do 2 things. Number 1, establish new underlying zoning for the existing home, and that would be A2. Number 2, establish new underlying zoning for the tract that will become part of the PUD. That underlying zoning would be A3. And then we ask that you approve the major amendment to the PUD, which takes into account those changes in the existing PUD and also the addition of this A3 property to the PUD. If any of you have any questions, I will be glad to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of either of these 2 cases? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition of either of the 2 cases? If not, at this time, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Jeff?
Yes, sir.
I really like what you've done with this. I think by, taking this and rezoning to A2 for that one specific piece and the A3 that falls right into that PUD. So I'll make a recommendation for approval on this first one, which is 055, is that correct?
261.
261, yeah.
Is that
I'll make a
correct?
motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve case 261, second by Commissioner Willie. Is it correct? Oh, Casabon, I'm sorry. Second by Commissioner Casabon.
Got a deep voice.
Commissioner Casabon.
Slap happy.
No,
You ready for me
do you
to
have
go?
any? Do you have any comment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This has turned out to be one of the premier locations we worried about the frontage, the setback, but it's just enough of the green space that you can see the lake. And I wanted y'all to make note that Dr. Martin is not here, so therefore, he has been, he is
The steward of Goodby.
the steward of the area, but
He is.
it has tremendously helped the drainage by these huge lakes, and if they continue with this process, the people on Tentella are just ecstatic that it really helps. So we'll do one, and then I'll make a motion on the other.
Very good.
Okay.
Commissioner Lauren.
Jeff, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Get over here to our communal mic. All right. If you take the these two cases, if we were looking at them as one today, is there any difference in the number of lots between today and what's proposed? What's the number of lot difference?
Well, I think the current PUD, which is 206 acres, has 263 lots. The additional 22 acres will bring our acreage up to 228, and it adds another 33 lots. So we'll go from 263 to 296. Pretty good public school education. But I mean, if that answers your question, I think it goes from 263.
I'm confused, Jeff, is if you read the paperwork we have,
Yes, sir.
it says going from 260 lots to 296. There was,
Well, I will tell you this. I know that this proposal is only 33 lots more. And I think our existing subdivision is 260. So maybe it's a total of 293. Ms. Lambert, correct me if I'm wrong.
it's a discrepancy is what I was asking.
Well, the only reason I remember the 260 is that, quite frankly, the original approval for this subdivision was a pretty long, hard-fought battle, as some of you may remember. And I am nearly certain that 260 is the magic number, because it was either a settlement or a decree, but, correct, I think. So it's likely to be 260 to 293, Mr. Loren.
That's what I was asking.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We have a motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, second by Commissioner Casabon. Please vote. And this is for case 261. Motion carries. We will now vote on case ZC 04-07-055.
Now make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Davis.
I'd just like to state that I really also like the way you had 3 large ponds instead of 5. That's a much better plan. Thank you.
We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-263-ZC. Existing zoning, NC5 Retail and Service District and A4 Single Family Residential District. Proposed zoning, Plan Unit Development Overlay. The parcel, 19 acres. The petitioner, Mark Salvetti. The owner, James E. Morin. The parcel is located in the southeast intersection of Brewster Road and River Chase Drive, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
I would like to suggest to hear 2016-263 with 2016-264, as there are two related cases.
We will do that. 2016-264-ZC, existing zoning, NC5 Retail and Service District, A5 Two-Family Residential District. The parcel, 9.1 acres. The petitioner, Mark Salvetti. The owner, James E. Morin. The parcel is located in the southeast intersection of Brewster Road and River Chase Drive, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
The 2025 calls for the area to be developed as a planned district with single-family residential uses and conservation areas. Staff does not have any objection to the request, considering that the A5 would create a transition between the abutting A7 multifamily residential zoning and on the west side in the A4 single-family residential zoning on the south side. Also, the rezoning of the portion of the site currently zoned NC2 and NC5 would also create a transition between the existing commercial NC5 in the residential zoning district. In regards to 2016-263, the petitioner is requesting a plan unit development overlay. The site is located at southeast intersection of Brewster Road and River Chase Drive and proposed to be developed as a single-family residential development of 78 lots. And this is the reason why the A5 zoning change was submitted in order to establish the underlying zoning and the density. A revised plan has been submitted today, and it meets most of the requirements. So at this time, staff would like to recommend approval of the request.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please state your name and address.
Prescott Bailey, 635 Main Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm here on behalf of Southern Lifestyle Development, and we also have Representative Mark Salvetti from Sterling Properties. A quick background on who we are. Southern Lifestyle Development is a residential developer based out of Lafayette. Our first project was a project called River Ranch. It was a traditional neighborhood development with a multitude of mixes of uses, apartments, commercial, retail, as well as single-family residential. We have started developing these all over the state, and we have had our eye on St. Tammany for a while now, trying to find the proper property here. We had a working relationship with the Sterling Group and realized that they had a property in River Chase that might have a suit for us to come in on the residential single-family side, as that's really our specialty. And what we realized with the River Chase development was that it had all of the puzzle pieces that we typically look for in one of our traditional neighborhood developments. It's got the retail, the commercial, the office space, the walkability, the parks. Really the one thing, the apartments as well that are going up now, the one thing that it's missing from our typical traditional neighborhood developments is the single family aspect. We ID'd a 19-acre site in the heart of the development that frankly, had we planned the development ourselves, we would have ID'd this as a logical residential site. It creates, as Helen mentioned, a buffer from a lot of uses from the existing commercial, retail, and apartments into some other residential uses as well. It's well located inside the development, which allows for walkability, which we try to locate, we look for in all of our communities. We're going to be doing this as a joint venture with the Sterling Group. We're not just buying the land as a developer. They wanted to be our partners in this throughout the long term of the process, so they will have a hand in this to make sure that it is developed properly, as we will do. The site is 19 acres. It's currently zoned NC5 as well as A4. We are actually requesting a down zoning from the NC5 to an A5 and requesting to keep the A4 as is. Then we'll also be requesting a PUD overlay as well. The current property is surrounded, as Helen mentioned, by apartments on one side that are currently under construction, commercial and retail on the other, and then residential on the remaining side. So we do believe that this will create a great transition, a higher density residential use, single family to the rear is a lower residential use, and then we'll act as a buffer between that, the apartments, the commercial, the retail, and it'll have that walkability between those uses. Currently the property is above BFE, no wetlands. There's oaks on the property that you can actually see on your plan. We have a tree survey done, and we will be preserving all of the oaks on the property. There's a drainage study in place. There is adequate drainage for the property as designed and what we are looking to do. A traffic study has also been performed as the property was zoned NC5, so it was actually done for a higher zoning than what we are proposing. So we are going to update that traffic study, but it's pretty obvious to us that it will show a lesser traffic count there. The new proposed plan that was submitted this morning has 76 lots. We actually decreased 2 lots. That's 4 units to the acre on the property. We've got 6 pocket park sites that are spread throughout the property that will have benches, trees. There's 1 active park that will have playgrounds with sidewalks. We'll tie all of these together. We place street trees. We encourage walkability. We will have a mixture of alley lots as well as front-loaded lots, and all of this will be walkable and tied to the rest of the River Chase community. So if you have any other questions regarding the development, I'm happy to answer them if it pleases you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Ms. Sandra.
I will be brief. Thank you very much. Sandra Slifer. I'm representing the Association of Associations. We met with the developers and reviewed their plans, and that we are going to support this plan, that we're pleased that a high-quality developer is coming to St. Tammany Parish and that Sterling is staying involved in it, and we'd just like to commend them for the excellent work that they are doing with River Chase, and we think that this residential component really rounds out that development and provides a community, and that is it gives people some choices in terms of the type of housing that they have, and so we're pleased that it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
And this is for both cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
See if this one's working here. Okay. Realizing all we've got is this packet. We don't have profiles of the houses or anything of that nature. Looking at the alley-loaded lots, being 35 feet wide, I'm assuming these are going to be zero lot lines?
5-foot side setbacks, so not quite zero lot lines.
So if you take 5 foot on each side?
You'll be left with a 25-foot buildable. These are our cottage product. It's our smaller home product. Typically ranges anywhere from about 1,600 to 1,850 square feet.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lauren? Commissioner Richard.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Richard, second by Commissioner Davis to approve 263. Is that
Yes, we're
correct?
going to do them in order, 263.
Thank you. And Commissioner Davis, 263. Okay. Any further comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Richard to approve, second by Commissioner Davis. Please vote. Motion carries. We will now vote on.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 264.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to approve case 264, second by Commissioner Davis. Seeing no further discussion, please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. ZC 15-04-035, existing zoning, a major amendment to the planned unit development overlay. The parcel 71 acres. The petitioner, Kyle Associates LLC. The owner, Yenin LLC. The parcel is located on the south side of Highway 22, west of Trepanier Road, Ward 1, District 4. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting a major amendment to the PUD, which consists of a reconfiguration of the plan to allow for the preservation of a total of 33 live oak trees, the increase of the total acreage of green space to be preserved, and the reduction of the total number of lots from 149 to 137 lots. All the elements of the PUD have been met, and staff would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone again on behalf of Yannon Development, which is the developer of this particular tract. The underlying zoning and the PUD for this particular project was approved back in June of last year. This 71 acres, you may recall, is located along the south side of Highway 22, west of Madisonville, kind of behind the Dollar General store and across the street from the Liberty Mini Storage facility in that area. Since June of last year, we've been actively engaged in a number of activities, but two primarily that lead us back here tonight. The first is that we've been in contact with the Corps of Engineers working toward our 404 wetlands permit. And the other is that we have had detailed survey work done on the interior of the site to be able to identify and locate the location of the live oak trees, of which there are some very significant live oak trees in a grove, actually two groves on the property. It is those two efforts that lead us to the request tonight to amend the PUD. We're trying to achieve two goals with this amendment. The first is to reduce the footprint in the wetland areas. And if you will look at the revised plan, you will see that we have moved out of the northwest area of the property and we have reduced the footprint in the northeast area of the property. Those areas are wetlands. We have tried to focus the development on what would be the ridge or the higher ground. So what you see before you moves out of those wetlands, which, if you recall from last year, was an issue that we discussed. Staff commented on that on the first go-round, and now we're making an effort to move out of those areas as best that we can. In addition, we've identified a very large stand of live oaks along the northwest corner of the property. You can see it. It's kind of small, but it is identified on the plan. So we have revised the layout to keep that in place as well. The staff did have some concerns in their original set of comments that came out. I believe that we've addressed those with regards to the amenities that we're providing. We are going to have a swimming pool. We're going to add a cabana with bathrooms, electricity to that. We also have playground equipment and benches in that area so that the residents will be able to enjoy that fully. In addition, there was a request by staff that we make a connection to Trepanier Road. What we have done, we initially did not make that connection for two reasons. One, we have already performed our traffic study on this project, even though we are not yet to the planning stage. But what that study told us is that Trepanier lines up with Perilou Road on the other side of 22. There are some congestion issues at that interchange. Because of that, we did not want to put additional traffic onto Trepanier. Furthermore, some of the residents on Trepanier asked that we not put any more traffic on Trepanier. However, staff had a very legitimate point in our view, and that was that we had the ability to connect, and it would be better for a safety reason to have an emergency exit if the main exit was blocked. And so that's what we have put on the plan. I spoke with Ms. Lambert this morning about that. So there will be a connection. So in the event that there is some blockage at the main entrance, this can be used and accessed by emergency vehicles and so forth. But it doesn't dump a lot of traffic onto Trepanier, only in the emergency situation. So I believe in working with the staff, we found a way to resolve that issue to everybody's satisfaction, at least with regards to my client and the staff. With that said, we're simply asking to reduce the footprint in the wetlands area, also to allow us to preserve those oaks. So with those changes, we would respectfully request your approval and your concurrence with the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, this emergency exit, is that going to be like locked into, I mean, like we've done before over there on Perilou with the schools and stuff, that, because that was one of the real big issues with the, you know, the residents in that area.
That's correct.
And the drainage, the road going underwater. I see you have that detention pond, and is that, I think it is, I can't see, it's so small. That's a detention pond on that back side. So that will probably make them happy to alleviate
Correct.
some of that and stuff. So I'll
Correct.
second it.
Second the motion by
motion.
Commissioner Casabon. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Casabon. Please vote. Motion carries. Is there any old business to be brought before the commission? Is there any new business?
Can we have a coffee machine put in for long nights like this?
I think we have one. There's one in the back. Absolutely. We can just give you caffeine pills.
This is.
I do, actually.
So the record will be accurate. The motion allowed you to come back in the room and you left.
It's one of those. It was one of those 4-4, and Chairman Dougherty was he was hanging. He was waffling on what it would be. I appreciate that. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
One question, Dave?
Yes, sir.